How many of you are here today? Not sure. I just need to know that. Sure. You can probably tell which one of the people in this photograph is me. Yeah, it's a nice hat, isn't it? Duck. And you. I took some notes because my intro, I didn't prepare an intro, so with Tony, Abe, and Liz, I took some notes to create my intro because, I mean, I'm going to ask you for another applause for the three of them because that was hot. I learned so much, I felt so much. I was not expecting to be that inspired for them, and I mentioned a couple of things that kind of their keywords leading into what Mark and I are going to do, what we're going to share, and they're keywords that I really feel strongly about. Abe's photography, he kept mentioning oversaturation and collaborations. Both of those words are really key words, and that's why I asked the question, in oversaturation, does that mean there's less for everybody else, new people coming in? And so one of the things he mentioned was collaborations, which is what Mark and I have been doing since, what year was it here?
1998.
1998. We collaborated on an event in the Black Box Theater downstairs. And ever since then, it's been just a collaboration. You know, I've worked with a lot of other musicians and entertainers, but the collaboration seems to be something that was really important. Now, as a performance artist, most of my life, I used to sing in the cabarets and tour Reno, Vegas, and Tahoe, and I sang for adults drinking and smoking. Now I sing for kids laughing and singing. And it was a nice evolution. And the collaboration is the key word, because working with kids, we're not only collaborating with each other, we're collaborating with the teachers and the children in an evolutionary movement. Liz said two things. Tell a story with your pictures, and depth of feeling, not depth of field. Remember that? That's really important. I think that was the key thing I took away from Liz's whole presentation was depth of feeling. And I'll get more into that later when I come back. And Tony mentioned creative, entertainers, arts education in schools. The term that I coined for what Mark and I do is edutainment. He's more into education, I'm more into entertaining. So when we collaborate, something greater than the sum of those two parts is edutainment, and it's creative collaborations. So I want to just throw those key words out before we move into what we're going to share. And Nevada Arts Council, yes, we're Nevada Arts Council resident artists. How many in this room are Nevada Arts Council artists already? Not that many, see? There's room to grow. There's room for you all to expand. But I personally think for you to expand into the arts with photography, it's going to help to find someone. It doesn't have to be a singer. Think about how many different ways you can invest in your dynamics to grow your photography and imagery with other artists. And collaborations will help move you to another level. So I'll be back. Now it's Mark Vollmer.
Thank you, Jim. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yep, okay. So this picture was taken this year at one of our residencies at Stead Elementary School in the North Valleys of Reno. And unlike most other programs that I present in which the work I share is from me, the pictures that I've taken, most of the pictures were taken by other people, while Jim and I have been doing our thing with the kids and with the adults through our grant-funded projects. So Jim and I have known each other for over a quarter century, and in 1996 we started doing projects together with his storytelling, his musicianship, and his songwriting, with my photography. And I was a geologist for the gold industry in Nevada for 20 years, so I brought that background with the photography into the mix. This was a program, a performance we did downstairs at the theater back in 2001. And behind us are other musicians from around northern Nevada who collaborated with us on this one performance. Jim and I were doing performances. We did 3 of them for the Brewery Arts Center back in 1998, 2001, and 2002. And matching my photographs from around the West with Jim's live music, accompanied by the musicians behind us.
We rocked it.
So fast forward to 2011, when Jim and I started making a deliberate effort to reach out to kids. And that started with the Great Basin Outdoor School, which is a nonprofit based in Reno. And what they do is every spring and every summer, every spring and every fall, they, for a period of several weeks, they bring a school of 6th graders up to spend a week there. And this goes on for several weeks. And they want to bring kids from schools who are considered Title I schools, meaning the majority of the kids live in poverty who go to that school. And they spend a week up at Lake Tahoe with the Great Basin Outdoor School, and they learn about working together to preserve the environment around the lake. They do hydrological studies. They learn about the geology. Jim and I have been going up there one day every May since 2011, most years, to give our brand of music and geology and photography to these kids. And so what we started to develop with this Great Basin Outdoor School is a format that we help to embellish when we go out to, as Nevada Arts Council roster artists, to schools and museums and libraries, which is we start off with a slideshow that I do of photos that I've taken of the local landscape and the story behind the landscape geologically. And then we go outside. If we are allowed more than 2 hours or more, we also include an outdoor segment. And the Great Basin Outdoor School is located on the shore of Lake Tahoe, just north of Cape Rock. And so we go out, and the kids who want to learn about photography, I will help them compose pictures, even though they may not have a camera with them. I will show them some techniques to help them compose pictures that of things that they really like to see. And Jim will lead us. Those who don't join me, Jim will take for storytelling and singing, and he'll bring his guitar and his drums. And afterwards, we bring everybody back together, and we sing a song that we're actually going to all perform here at the end of our program, called Under One Sky. And you'll see, you get an idea of why we like to close every program that we do with that. Then we bring the kids back inside. They write in their journals of what they have learned in the slideshow, as well as what they experienced outside. And we take selected words from the kids' journals, and Jim will write a song verse on the spot. This is how many of you have heard of the song Colors of the Wind? It's from the movie Pocahontas. Right there. So a few of you, but it's a really visually oriented song. To me it is easy to put images to. But what I did here, a red-tailed hawk picture that I photographed in Reno, I superimposed the first verse and the chorus on here, and these letters here are notes for Jim to follow as he's playing the guitar. And so we help them sing the first verse and the chorus, and then everybody sings as a second verse. That's their own verse that they created with the words. And then we sing the chorus again. And after that, we close out the program with a drum circle. And Jim and I each have our own drums. I made my own Native American drum 25 years ago. And in this picture, I forget who took this picture, but Jim was doing a coyote howl.
On an African drum. Take Sue took it.
Okay. So, and before we went back in, we had the kids, the girls, collect 2 sticks, and each boy collect 2 rocks. And those are their percussion instruments that they play during this closing drumming round. So everyone is participating in this. Okay, so that's pretty much the gist of what we do. Start off with the slideshow that I put together with my photography on the story of the landscape and how the geology supports life, animal life, and the cultures that have lived here. Followed by an outdoor session if time allows, and then journaling, the kids journal what they have learned and appreciated about the program so far, and then we help them create a song verse. And we perform that song verse together, as well as all participating in the drumming round to celebrate the earth that supports all of us. So now it eventually led to us being accepted as roster artists for the Nevada Arts Council, which happened in 2015. And so one of our first gigs as roster artists was at Mark Twain Elementary School here in Carson City, in which they had an annual art experience for one day every year, and this was in January of that year that they invited us. And this is leading into a section that I call getting your other interest into your program to add to the photography. That previous picture was a flyer that was posted on the classroom door at the school to show Jim and I are in here, and we're going to perform and show photographs of the earth science around the immediate Carson City area. And so what they had on that day in January was they had three groups of kids come in, and we gave a 15-minute program for each group of kids. And what I'm showing here in this picture is a photo I took of the Carson Hot Springs, just on the north edge of town here. Hot springs are really fascinating geologically on why they exist. So if you have an interest or a former career in earth science, you can bring that in. What about animals? Do you have a career in wildlife management? You must have a lot of pictures of animals, native animals, and you can add that to your repertoire. I have a fascination with animals myself since I was a little kid, and in addition to rocks. That photograph I'm showing is a juvenile bald eagle. And this photo was taken during one of our residencies at the Carson City Library. What about anthropology? Did you have a career in that, or do you have an active interest in that? Cultural history? Add that. The more facets that you add to your project, the more marketable you'll be for schools and museums and libraries. The photo that I'm showing here, and again, this is at the Carson City Library in that same residency, is a photo that I took inside the Genoa Courthouse Museum. So I went from the natural history to the animals that this geology supports and the plants that the geology supports to the cultures that have eventually moved in here. What about writing? Do you like to write? Whether or not you're a published writer, Jim and I are both published authors, so writing comes naturally to include. And so that writing segment is when the kids write in their journals on what they've learned so far. Collaborate with someone else too, Jim just mentioned. To me, photography and music have the same kind of power to move your emotions. And Jim's original music, his lyrics are human spirituality-based and nature-based nature-based, and I find it very compatible with my photography, and that's one of the reasons why we've been doing this for so long together. This is at Grass Valley Elementary School in Winnemucca last year, and what I'm showing here is the Words to Home Means Nevada. Elementary school kids all know that song, and so that's easy. It's easy for us to put their kids' words to it. And so this was a Black Rock Desert sunset photo that I superimposed the text on. One of the verses, the excerpt, part of one of the verses, as well as the chorus. And then here's the kids' words that from their journals that Jim created a new verse to. Also, in addition to bringing other interests, in addition to photography, into your program, also it helps to be flexible with the length of your program. I really like this picture because it shows that how collaborate with other artists can not only be a lot of fun, but it's so much fun for the kids. Kids love to practice rhythm. But this particular program we did for Stead Elementary School for each second grade class was an hour and 15 minutes, so that it did not give us time to do a segment outside, so we brought the outdoors indoors. This picture was taken a month ago when we did another week-long residency in Winnemucca, funded by the Nevada Arts Council. And so this was an all-day program we did for all the second graders at Winnemucca Grammar School. And that included a field trip to Riverview Park along the Humboldt River. And we were all having a good time here. Circle dance. Circle dance, yeah. And then back to Mark Twain Elementary School. It is a Title I school here in Carson City. Again, they gave us 15 to 20 minutes each time, and for the afternoon, that's what we did, all afternoon, 15 and 20-minute programs to different groups of kids. And they had, when they brought kids in, the higher grades were buddied up with the lower grades. So 6th graders got buddied up with 3rd graders, 5th graders to 2nd graders, and 4th graders got buddied up with kindergartners and 1st graders, just so they have somebody, an older student, to help them understand what was going on. Okay, so you have a good idea now of what you want to present and how you want to do your educational workshops. This was on the screen is what I had passed out before everyone came, so hopefully each of you have a copy of this. Jim and I, once we were accepted as roster artists, I created, along with Jim's input, a promotional flyer for us to distribute. And reaching out is a huge part of you being successful and landing projects and getting your name out there. You have to personally reach out. So that was the reason for this. And we called it story songs. I tell stories in pictures of the history of the landscape and of the animals and the people. And Jen tells stories through the medium of song and live music. And in this picture, I took on a self-timer with my camera on a tripod in the backyard of the house that I used to live at in Reno. But all of this here is the same font. They're just different representatives. It's the Arial font that I use. Personally, I find the Arial font to be easily readable. But there's a purpose why I had different representations here. In bold here, it's exactly what Story Songs is. And then a quote from Denise Sewell, who is the executive director of the Pioneer Center Youth Programs. One of the things that helped us get accepted as roster artists is for the work that we did through the Pioneer Center Youth Program to reaching out to kids and to community venues. And this paragraph right here is what is the gist of what Jim and I, who we are. And then in bold right here is the goal. It helps to have a clearly stated goal of what your program is going to do and what your audience is going to learn from it. And then, because this is for schools, this flyer is intended for schools, I included a quote from a third grader from one of the schools that we went to for the Pioneer Summer Youth Program a few years earlier. And then finally is our contact information here. This highlights our webpage. That's the link to our webpage on the Nevada Arts Council site. Our contact information is down here. You always want to include the logo, Nevada Arts Council, so it helps the Arts Council as well as the artists on both ways for that recognition. But we also, by the suggestion of a friend, we added this: interested in an express grant for your school, we can help. The express grant, as far as I know, Tony may want to correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the only grant that I know in which the artist or the venue can apply for. Other grants, it's either the artist applies for it or it's the venue that applies for it. But because either one can apply for it, we included this. I have applied and been approved for 5 express grants so far for the schools that we went to. Oh, and the reaching out part, we did a mass mailing to all the schools in the western counties of Nevada. And also, we went on the road and made personal visits to schools, including Eaglesmith Elementary School in the southwest foothills of Reno. We visited them in the fall, and they booked us for the spring during an annual week-long event they hold in March of every year called Storytelling Week. And that fit right in with what we were doing. This is at Eaglesmith Elementary School, and this is the closing drum round we had with all the students. We did this for all the grades, K through 6 at that school. And the kids thought it was really cool that we had the teachers, we gave drums to the teachers so that they can drum with us. And the kids just used their bodies for percussion, clapping, this, snapping fingers. Then I made one, again with Jim's input, for community venues, a separate one from the schools. So this was targeted toward museums and libraries and other community venues. I had the same quote from Denise Sewell, but I had the quote that I had down here is from Laurel Hogan, who at the time was at the Northwest Reno Library. And this is not on your, this is not a handout that I passed out, just the school one. But I'm going to read this quote to you. They had the audience in the palm of their hands. They were very good in weaving different age levels throughout the program, interactive activities, very successful, very personal performers. And so quotes like that really help to sell you too. And again, with that flyers, we did personal visits to several area venues, including the Sparks Library. This is a picture that I took one late afternoon. Sparks Library, Sparks Museum. How many have been to the Sparks Museum? That's a cool little place. And the manager there was very cool to work with too. And she, on behalf of us, she filled out the express grant for us. And that was the first grant she ever did, and so I gave her some pointers and I helped her through the process of applying for that and getting accepted. So what I like to do, this is I like to show a picture that I made with the title and Jim's and my name on the screen as the audience is walking into the room. And this is a picture that I took at sunrise over Sparks, seen from the Wedekind Hills over by Pyramid Highway. And remembering our Sparks heritage was the name of this workshop that we did at the Sparks Museum. This was April of 2018. And this is during that program, as opposed to our regular audience of kids and families, this was adults. And so Jim and I are doing what we call the storm cycle. It's a really cool thing where I tell the audience, we are going to create a storm in here, but we're not going to get wet. That's the cool thing. And so with body percussion, the wind, rain coming, rain falling hard, and then back to this, the storm passes. The kids really dig that. Oh, let me go back to this.
Or the adults behaving like kids.
So in the audience in this workshop, there were two sisters, Vicki and Colleen. Sitting underneath the chairs below them were a couple of guide dogs in training. And they were helping to raise them to start the process of training them for their life as guide dogs. There were a couple of golden retrievers, still not quite 1 year old. And so we had a nice chat with them after the program. And I, being a dog lover, could not resist being asked to do a group photo with the dogs and the sisters. And boy, were the dogs friendly. Okay, so now you have landed a project, a residency with the venue. What now? You applied for your Express grant, and here's a little tip that I had learned. I always have to learn from experience. It's not often that I learn from somebody else, although sometimes that happens too. But sometimes I have to experience something for myself to learn. So when you go online on the Nevada Arts Council site, and what you see are the questions outlining what you need to, the questions ask, what's the goal of residency, what's going to be your audience, who is your contact person, when did you meet. What I do is that I copy and paste all those questions onto a document that I make, and I title it, this one was Express Grant Worksheet for Stead Elementary School 2019 Workshop Grant. And so I have the questions in bold type, and then my answers to them are underneath each question. And here's the second page. Continuing that. For the Express Grant, 80% of your program has to be educational. The other 20% can be an assembly performance, but 80% has to be a workshop type of program. And so you can go on the Nevada Department of Education website and look at the education standards because we get into natural history, there's science standards, and they have standards for each grade level. This grant was for our workshop programs for all the second graders at Stead Elementary. And then finishing up the questions. And then when you get back online, just copy and paste your answers underneath each appropriate question. And then save this document, because in the future, you may end up writing another grant or applying for another grant. And you're obviously going to have to do some editing from before, changing the dates, changing the venue, changing the people, probably changing what you're going to be doing. But at least you have a foundation here. You don't have to start from scratch again. And when you do get that letter of approval, it's been my experience that letters of approval after I submitted my grant has taken about 2 to 4 weeks to get a reply, depending on the time of year. But I'm just going to read the first sentences. Dear Mark, on behalf of the staff and board of the Nevada Arts Council, NAC, please accept my congratulations on your fiscal year 2019 grant in the category and amount noted above. And up here, the Express grant for $1,200. That, by the way, is the maximum for an Express grant if you're not going to be traveling. If you're going to be traveling at least 50 miles from where you live, then you have you can add up to $300 for travel expenses. And then, once you are approved, I highly recommend visiting that venue personally, visiting with the staff, and make further plans for your workshop. And this picture was taken this past year, back a month and a half ago at the Humboldt Museum. Dana Toth on the right is the executive director, and then her assistant is Jerry Leon. And Dana wrote out a grant for the maximum amount of $1,500 because we traveled from Reno. And the grant included our all-day workshop at Winnemucca Grammar School, plus a workshop we did at the Humboldt County Library. And finally, the museum program, where we took work from the kids from the Winnemucca Grammar School And the kids came with their parents as well to help us perform that. And you're going to be showing, you're going to be seeing pictures from that too. But it's really good not only to see the faces, but look at the facilities where you're going to be at. Because we incorporate music and we have some electronics and things to plug in, we want to know where the outlets are and see how the people are going to be, where they're going to be seated. And this is at the Humboldt Museum, and Jerry was taking us around at the old school there that's on the museum grounds, because that's where they have a lot of their events, the gallery exhibits, as well as talks and shows. And as photographers, treat that as a recon trip as well. Take pictures. What I like to do is photograph the venue where we're going to be. Last year we were at Grass Valley Elementary. This is, we met with the staff there after we met with the staff at the Humboldt Museum. And I'd like to include this picture and put it up on the day of the residency, have it on the screen as the kids are walking in. And I heard two of them say, "That's our school." And explore the area. In my geology career, I've explored a lot of Nevada, so I do have some old slides of some of the geology of the local area. Pretty much no matter where in Nevada we're going to go, so I'll include those. I'll scan them in as well as take new pictures. And this Jen took this picture of me at Silver Lake in Lemon Valley in North Reno. And near where he was standing when he took this picture, I was walking over by where he was, and I noticed some greenery. This was in February of this year that we went out there. I noticed some greenery, brushed aside the dormant grass, and saw some new greenery coming up. And because Stead Elementary School wants us to concentrate on cycles of nature, and I felt let's do cycles of nature for Lemon Valley, that makes it really relevant to the kids. Just to have that, see all of this right where they live. So I had my fingers there for scale, and that ended up being part of the Cycles of Nature slideshow. Okay, and because if you're the one who got approved for the grant, and your final grant report after the project is finished, you are going to need to submit photographic proof that you actually did it. And so I always ask a member of the staff if they can take pictures with my camera for that purpose. And I haven't gotten one refusal. When they understand that these pictures are required for documentation, they're happy to do them. This is at Winnemucca Grammar School a month and a half ago. Tammy Francis is there in the picture, and she was the teacher, the 7th grade teacher who was our contact, and I think she did a stellar job and how she was invested in the success of this. And whenever we meet somebody who we feel is as invested in the success of the workshop as Jim and I are, that's why we go and travel and visit these places personally, because we really want to make sure this succeeds. But anyway, one of the other teachers took a picture of me giving her instructions on the camera. So what I'm going to be presenting here in the next segment is kind of a documentation of what of our work with Winnemucca Grammar School that was funded by the Arts Council, and our subsequent program for the Winnemucca community, the Humboldt Museum. So Winnemucca Grammar School, their mascot is the frog, and this was taken on March 1st, the day that we spent with the kids. Those of you who are in Winnemucca, what was the weather doing on April 30th? Snowing, yeah. It's my understanding that the Winnemucca Airport out in Grass Valley has 7 inches of snow. The next day, there was still a lot of snow on Winnemucca Mountain. And so the day began normally with my geology presentation leading into my pictures of animals around the area and the cultural history. The picture I'm showing here is the mammoth skeleton over at the State Museum right down the road here. Now, there is one thing I like to do to entice the kids to pay attention the whole time. I say, pay attention because I'm going to ask at any time at a random student, what did they learn from a picture they saw previously? What I said about 5 minutes ago. And if they answer the question correctly, they get a prize. And I let them know where the prize is, which is in this little Cool Whip container here. And I shake it. Does that sound like Cool Whip to you? No! What's in there are polished Nevada stones. And when they answer the question correctly, I give them one of these stones to take home with them. And kids just love Nevada stones, polished stones. Most of these are microcrystalline quartz, these white and gray. We've got some jasper here, it's red because of iron, and we got what looks like flint here, but all of this is microcrystalline quartz. And I want every child who participates in our workshops to go home with a polished Nevada stone. And this 7th grader loves the heart shape of the microcrystalline quartz that he got from answering my geology question correctly. And we ended the slideshow with the storm circle. And then we hopped on, there was 88 2nd graders and 4 teachers. And so after this storm circle segment, we hopped on 2 buses to go to Riverview Park. And I noticed when I stepped in one of the buses that this was written on one of the windows. And so when we all arrived and gathered the kids together, and also the teachers were joined by a couple of volunteer parents to help with the kids. But I gave an introduction to what they were going to do for the next hour there at Riverview Park along the river. And what I said was, and I'm just paraphrasing, but you brought your journals here because you are going to write down in them everything that you are seeing, what you're hearing, what you are touching, because this is for science, and the first step of science research is writing down your personal observations. That's why you all brought your note-taking materials. And for those who, in addition to that, want to take pictures, let me go back to this. We want to take pictures with the cell phones. There's 2 things I want you to keep in mind. That is, 1, diagonal elements, diagonal lines or curved lines look really cool in photographs. And 2, if you when you compose your pictures, just compose on what you like and leave as much out from the picture as you possibly can. Those are the only 2 things that I told them. And you're going to see the results of that in just a minute here. But anyway, so all the students were were fascinated by the large limestone rocks with the veins running through them, so they wrote about that. There's also some gravel planters out around the north side of the river, and so they would pick up the rocks and look at them and write about what they looked like and what they were seeing. And I instructed them it's okay to pick up rocks, but put it back where you found it, because if everyone took rocks home with them, there won't be any rocks left to see, people. They wrote about the grasses, how high were they, what about the other plants. They also picked up handfuls of dirt and looked at it. So what do they see? How does the dirt feel? What color is it? And of course, they wrote about the river. And there's a few of them taking pictures. And I'm going to show you what we did with some of those pictures. We ended the hour with a drum circle. Jim and I each had our own percussion, and we brought extra drums for the teachers to also play for the kids. And Jim instructed the girls to form an inner circle, and they dance clockwise, and the boys form the outer circle, and they dance counterclockwise as we played for them. This is a celebration of the earth that supports us. When we got back after lunch, we had a few minutes to kill, so the teacher asked several students to share what they wrote on the field trip. And they had a little microphone there. And this student drew a picture of Winnemucca Mountain and shared it with the kids, with his classmates. Then when the gym was ready, this gym is where they also have their lunch. When that was ready, we went in there and the kids wrote up their journals again. And they wrote what they experienced so far during the day, the slideshow as well as the field trip. And then we took selected words. And I like to involve the kids completely in this process. So and kids are always ready to volunteer to write down on this board, on this paper panel here. And so I would instruct them, write 2 words, ask your classmates what to volunteer a word from the journal, and then ask another classmate, and they write the 2 words, and then another child will have their turn to write on this pad. Meanwhile, you don't see it in this picture, but Jim is standing right behind me, and now that he's got enough words to work on, he's started to make a new verse for Home East Nevada.
We have about 5 minutes.
And there we are. Jim and I are helping to sing the new verse here. Here's what I projected here. Here's the verse that Jim created, and here are the kids' words. We also made egg shakers so the kids can have percussion instruments of their own to take home with them, as well as the polished rocks. We have an assembly line for the 88 kids, and at the closing drum circle in the gym before school lets out, we had a drumming round. Jim and the teachers and I supplied the rhythm, and the kids danced and played their egg shakers. We like to close with that because it gives them a nice memory to take home. Okay, now I'm going to show you a few of the pictures that the kids took that were on display a few days later at the Humboldt Museum. And I made this 11 by 14 with the text, and the pictures were printed at the museum. But this picture and the next 5 are taken by the students. Keep in mind, this is between the hours of 10 and 11 a.m. And I just had the kids instructed for those 2 things. This little green thing is actually a bud growing straight up from the knots in the trunk. I'm not sure if the student who took this knew that someone was running into it or being instructed the person to run into it. But I thought it was effective. These are 6 of the 12 that I chose to be printed. There's another case where I didn't know that the student knew that there is a flare from the sun. The sun was right over here coming into the picture, but the rainbow colors are so cool on this. Usually flares are distracting, but I think in this case it added a cool element. I didn't say anything about the guideline of thirds, the tic-tac-toe diagram to offset your subject, but this is what one student took, a little granite pebble on the sidewalk. I love the warm and cool tone contrast along with textures that are similar in both subjects. And one student took a picture of another interacting with the springtime. On Saturday at the museum, this is the culmination, and the 12 photos were on easels around the perimeters, and this is some of the parents and the kids in attendance playing the drum, and we did a group photo here. Okay, and I'm going to invite Jim to come up and share an anecdote or 2.
Can I turn the lights back up a little bit?
Yes, please. We were getting into our question and answer period, but Jim and I will be around for the rest of the day to answer your questions. We don't have much time left after we're done here.
Okay. White buffalo. Natural buffalo, male and female. A Lakota man made this for me about 20 years ago. And recently, a friend of mine's wife made white buffalo. He's a Cherokee flute player. Musical works, and his wife just never made one of those drum cases before, but she decided when she saw my drum, she was going to make a case that surprised me to get the drum. The drum is important because when we present to kids in schools, can you hear me in the back? We like to talk to them about nature because he's sharing nature, photography, and bringing the nature and the environment to life. So I like to mention to them, because we do songs and share music about nature, that the animal gave up its life for this hide to go on the drum. The tree gave up its life for the frame to go on the drum. And the human, when the human plays the drum and or sings, then all of a sudden all three bring nature back to life and shows respect for those animals and the trees and the earth that participated in bringing this together. Does that make sense? What a subtle thought to think about. That kids don't learn that in school academically. They don't get it. And one of the things that Tony was talking about was, and you saw it on his program, was how he's bringing things to life for kids by bringing all of you into the schools if it's possible, because kids need to learn this stuff. Nature and outdoor stuff, and it's not all about phones. When they're looking at a phone, the life goes by sometimes, doesn't it? It's just, I didn't grow up with phones like they did, but I think a lot of life for kids just gets missed. And so we like to bring part of the life that they possibly missed to the school. I want to mention this rattle was made from a roadkill on 395. What's that one? Which one?
Nazareth.
That's what?
Nazareth.
Okay. This was while the kids in second grade, Stead Elementary, are exiting. They're clapping, and I think I'm singing, we like it, we love it, we want some more, and they're marching out. And when they get to the door, they're lined up with the teacher in the front and the back, getting ready to go to lunch in the cafeteria. I'm glad you reminded me to tell that story. And so they go and they line up. You want to advance it for me? I'm down here like this on the floor, packing that African drum, the djembe. And I look over at the line, and in the line, a little girl, this is a 7-year-old, breaks the rules and breaks out of line, comes running up to me, and jumps on me and gives me a hug, and she says, I love you and I don't want you to go. And so, I'm starting to cry there. Some more kids come out, they see her, and they break out of line and they come running over. They want to be in on this hug because what heart math, I'm a heart math artist, and what that taught was that when you get people in a room, all the heart vibrations, the resonance, electromagnetically connects with all the other hearts, and you get this group heart mind. The kids are better at connecting at the heart than adults because we've got interference, right? So this is what happened with these kids. They felt her love, her heart, and her emotions, and they came over. And I looked over at the teachers, and the teachers turned their heads with me. Probably for obvious reasons, like, I don't know. So then, is that the last one?
Yeah.
So Mark and I pack up our stuff. We're on a 4-wheel cart. We're going out the door. And when we go through the gym, the kids in our class were in the row along having lunch along the path. They're giving me high fives walking by. And as they did that, they start clapping, yay, for me and Mark. And there's 200 kids in the room having lunch at higher grades, and they don't know us, but they felt the energy from these kids. And all of a sudden, they're all applauding and standing up. They're giving us a standing ovation. The teachers are against the wall going, what is going on? They just hijacked this room, this lunchroom. That's an example of when you share with other people and you love what you're doing like you do, people are being affected by it. And we don't really know how we affect other people. And sometimes we see a picture like this and it reminds us, or a story, or they write notes about what they learned in school, like that.
Just going to scroll through these because of time, but we'll be happy to share what they wrote.
Your friend
Nazareth. Nazareth wrote that.
Her name, the little girl that hugged me, her name was Nazareth.
And this is from a regional youth center in Silver Springs that we went to. Spent a half a day with them for kids who were there to get counseling for addiction issues. We got a lot of great evaluations for them. But I posted this one because this one sentence really got to us. Go ahead and read that, Jim.
I always write, but maybe I'll stop hiding it now. And I loaned him my guitar. He sat down and played guitar, crying while he was playing guitar because we honored him, we supported and empowered him to be a writer. And he's never shown his writing. He was there in that school for drug abuse because he was stifling his pain. Whatever his background was, I didn't even ask why he buried his pain. But he journaled and he wrote poetry and stuff. That was his creative outlet, and he hid it so long. And we brought him out. I don't know where he is right now, but I think he's probably a great kid. I'm just honored and happy to be a part of changing these kids' lives through the arts and culture. I want you to sing along. This song, I was inspired after leaving the Nevada State Museum. You probably know that Under One Sky is the name of the resident artist there. It was only there for 3 years. And I went there on the second year, I think, and they said there's only one more year. So after that year, it was so popular, they made it a permanent resident artist. To showing people. I went home and wrote this song 20 years ago. How many years ago, Mark?
About 15.
15 years ago. Last year, my friend Eric Ray, whose wife made this drum, Cherokee artist, he added his native flute and re-recorded this song. And it was nominated by the Indian Summer Music Awards in New York last year. Just going to do the last verse instead of all three. Pray for peace for all the children. Walk in grace with every step. May they each learn to forgive us under one sky, hand in hand. Mark's going to sing it for you. Under one sky, we are one nation. We are one nation. Under one sky, we are one land. Under one sky, all my relations. Under one sky, hand in hand. Everybody sing together now. Under one sky, we are one nation. Under one sky, we are one land.